Hello YouTube and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Mount & Blade Bannerlord, specifically the Realm of Thrones total conversion mod that brings the whole game into the Game of Thrones universe. Today our topic is the top 10 best husbands in the game based on how good of a trader they are. So these are going to be husbands that you want to lead a trade caravan for you and maximize your profit and reliability. So the main skills we're going to be focused on here are obviously trade being the primary one, but then secondary after that we have of course the tactics skill, which means that the higher tactics skill the more likely they are to win in combat, and trade caravans get into combat relatively frequently, so that is important. And then as a third feature, we also focus on their personal combat skill, because the better they are at combat, the more survivable they are in combat, which is also something to care about. So yes, those are the factors here, and so we're going to start off at number 10 and move on to number 1, 10 being the worst, 1 being the best. And if you want to find anyone in the game, this is how you do it. You're going to want to go into your notes tab, and if you're playing on PC, you do that by pressing the N key. Then you're going to want to select heroes, and then narrow it down for what you're looking for. And for a husband, we're looking for someone who is male, someone that is alive. We'll come back to culture later. We want to select Lord and Lady because those are the marryable people here, and then not married, because if they're married you don't mess around with them. So we'll go to culture next, and for number 10 we're going to be looking for someone from the Reach, and that person is going to be Loras Tyrell. And so Loras Tyrell takes the number 10 spot on this list, and he is a pretty solid option. So you'll remember him from the show and the books, I would hope. In the show he's the only noticeable son of Mace Tyrell that shows up, and brother to Marjorie Tyrell, so the, I guess, Prince of the Reach is kind of how you'd look at him. In the books, however, he does share the scene with Willis and Garland, his other two brothers, and totally different storylines. But anyway, all of that aside, Loras Tyrell starts the mod at age 25 with a charm skill of 80, trade of 101, steward of 120, tactics of 140, leadership of 140, and his highest combat skill being 240. And he has that in 3 skills: one-handed, two-handed, and polearm, so solid of course there. But of course the skills that we care about most here are going to be trade, which for him is level 101, and tactics, which is level 140. So both of those being quite good, he does make a good leader of a trade caravan, if it is a somewhat inauspicious role for such a high-ranking noble. That being said, for traits we have honest and cruel, honest being a good trait, cruel being a bad one, but neither one of them having a huge effect on how good he is at being a trader. Trader, someone who trades, not someone that betrays you. Let's keep that in mind. But in any case, Loras Tyrell is a great option and takes the number 10 spot for the best traders as far as available husbands go. At number 9, we've got Victarion Greyjoy of the Iron Islands. He is one of the brothers of Balon Greyjoy. You should remember him from both show and the books. I believe he's the one who is super into the religion of the drowned god in the books. I don't know that he plays a big role in the show. But anyway, he starts the game at age 30 with a charm skill of 80, trade of 101, steward of 122, tactics of 140, leadership of 140, and a combat of 260, or his highest combat skill being 260, which he has in polearm. Of course, he's got good combat skills everywhere else across the board, but what we most care about here is that trade skill of 101 and tactics of 140. So he does make a pretty dang solid trade caravan leader like most of the people on this list. He also starts off with a good suit of armor and nice weapons, so he's not too fragile there. He does have negative traits, those being close-fisted and cruel. Neither one of those is particularly great in a husband, but neither one of them is a negative effect for being a trader. So yes, Victarion Greyjoy takes the number 9 spot, and if you're looking for a spouse from the Iron Islands, he is the only one on this list that is good at trading. So yes, that's a Victarion Greyjoy at number 9. At number 8, we've got SMALLJON Umber, the son of the Great Jon. So he's part of the Umber clan, one of the most notable clans of the North, and he does play a decent part in both the books and in the show. In the show, he definitely goes down a different path. In the books, it hasn't gotten that far in the story yet, but in the show, he does kind of betray the Starks in the end. So your opinion on the SMALLJON might be different, but yeah, he is definitely a well-known character in both forms of media. He starts the game at age 24 with a charm skill of 120, a trade skill of 120, steward of 141, tactics of 140, leadership of 140, and his highest combat skill being level 210, and he has that in one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. And of course, he also has the advantage of starting off with pretty good armor and weapons, so great across the board. Definitely makes a good trader with a nice high trade skill of 120, and of course, tactics of 140 and high personal combat skills doesn't hurt at all. So SMALLJON Umber takes the number 8 spot. Let's move on to number 7. At number 7, we've got DICKON Tarly of the Reach. So he's part of Clan Tarly, culture being the Reach. He starts off the game at age 26 with a charm skill of 80, trade of 121, steward of 142, tactics of 160, leadership of 160, and his highest combat skill being 210, and that again is in one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. Much like SMALLJON, he starts off with good armor and weapons, and of course nice personal combat skills. Traits for him, we have generous, honest, daring, and merciful, so all good traits there. And of course, for trading, what we care about is that high trade skill of 121, and tactics of 160. So an excellent option for a spouse just in general, but on this list he takes the number 7 spot. So let's move on to number 6. And at 6 we've got the first Stark on this list, that one being Bran Stark. And so we'll get to some interesting stuff, but let's just start with his stats. At the beginning of the game he starts at age 18, charm of 160, trade of 122, steward of 142, tactics of 100, leadership of 100, and his highest combat skills being 150, those in one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. So obviously you probably know who Bran Stark is. He's one of the main characters in both the books and show, and is the second youngest son and child just in general of Eddard Stark. So, you know, main character for a little while in the books and show. Interestingly, Bran Stark, there's two interesting things. For one thing, both Sansa and Arya Stark are in the game, but both of them are too young to marry at the beginning. So if you want to marry either one of them as a male character, if you want to marry them, you have to wait several years. But Bran Stark, who is younger than both of them in the books and the show, starts the game at age 18 and is immediately marryable. So that's an interesting fact. Another thing is his key defining feature in the story is that he gets paralyzed at the beginning from the waist down, and so therefore, you know, that drives his story. But in this mod here, he's not. Not only is he not paralyzed, but he's a pretty dang good warrior across the board, and the rest of his stats are also quite high. So if you want him leading a trade caravan, he can do it. Trait-wise for him, we have daring and merciful, both good stats, both good traits for a husband, I should say. And of course, his trade skills are also quite good, having a trade skill of 122, tactics of 100, and like I said, nice high personal combat skills across the board, and of course starts off with good weapons and armor. So Bran Stark is an excellent option if you want to marry a Stark of the North, and you want him to lead a trade caravan for you. Like I said, he takes the number 6 spot. Let's move on to number 5. At number 5, we've got Renly Baratheon, the ruler of the Stormlands and the youngest brother of the ex-king, Robert Baratheon. He starts off the game at age 29, charm skill of 160, trade of 122, steward of 142, tactics of 120, leadership of 120, and his highest combat skill is level 180, and that is in two-handed, one-handed, and polearm. So obviously quite good there. He does start off with decent enough armor and weapons, and traits for him starting off are generous, honest, cautious, merciful, and calculating, all of which making him a pretty solid husband, and none of which having a negative effect on his trading ability. Obviously his personal skills are all quite good. His combat makes him an excellent option for any sort of combat role you might have in mind for him, but our main focus here being 122 in trade, 120 in tactics, and then of course his personal combat is a secondary thing to focus on. So Renly Baratheon is a great choice. He makes an excellent spouse. He's still young enough that he's full of energy and obviously hopefully won't die very soon, so you can have a nice long and profitable relationship with him. So Renly Baratheon takes the number 5 spot. Let's move on to number 4. At number 4 we've got Aegon Targaryen, who is a book-only character, or at least book-only at this stage in life. I won't spoil it because it's one of the most interesting changes that the show, I mean, I prefer the book version better, and it's a huge divergence. So if you've seen the show and you think you have the whole story, I definitely recommend checking out the books, because the show is an extremely dumbed down, simplified version, and Aegon's whole arc is totally missing from it. So anyway, Aegon Targaryen is a great choice in here, and that's why he takes the number 4 spot. He starts the game at age 22 with a charm skill of 140, trade of 122, steward of 141, tactics of 160, leadership of 160, and his highest combat skill at 240, which he has in 3 skills, one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. So again, real balanced across those melee skills. Only trait he has is daring, which is a good one. I don't have any problems with that as a trade caravan leader. He is nice and young starting off. He does have good weapons and armor starting off. And of course, as a trade caravan leader, what we care about is those skills. Trade of 122, tactics of 160, and the nice high personal combat skills. He makes a great husband for all sorts of different things, but he takes the number 4 spot for the best husbands as far as trade caravan leaders go. So that's number 4. Let's move on to number 3. At number 3, we've got Jon Snow. From the Night's Watch. He starts the game at age 24, charm of 100, trade of 141, steward of 161, tactics of 160, leadership of 160, and combat of 270. So that skill is in one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. So crazy high combat ability. That's excellent there. Traits starting off for him, we have honorable, fearless, and merciful. So excellent traits there. He is only 24 starting off, so again, not bad at all. Jon Snow obviously is one of the main characters from the show and books. So if you don't know who he is, because I would guess that you're totally new to Game of Thrones. But with all that in mind, he is obviously quite good in the game, excellent stats across the board, and his trade skill of 141, tactics of 160, and crazy high personal combat skills are what earned him the number 3 spot on this list. So that's number 3, Jon Snow. At number 2, we've got Robb Stark, the oldest son of Eddard Stark, and one of the 5 kings from the War of the Five Kings. So he starts off the game at age 25 with a charm skill of 140, trade of 142, steward of 162, tactics of 180, leadership of 180, and his highest combat skill is 240, which he has in one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. So obviously great skills across the board, but for trade specifically, we have trade of 142, tactics of 180, which is nice and high, and of course really high personal combat skills, so he's quite good at that. He also has the advantage of starting off with pretty solid armor, great weapons, including Ice, the legendary two-handed Valyrian greatsword, Valyrian steel greatsword, I should say, and nice traits starting off too. So we have generous, honest, daring, and cruel. So cruel isn't great, but it doesn't make a huge difference here. In general, Robb Stark is obviously an excellent spouse choice, and he takes the number 2 spot for this list. So let's move on to number 1. Finally, at number 1, we have DORAN Martell, the ruler of Dorne. So as far as his stats go, he starts the game at age 46, charm of 180, trade of 162, steward of 180, tactics of 140, leadership of 140, and his highest combat skills are all level 150, and those are one-handed, two-handed, and polearm. So again, a little bit older, but it doesn't make a huge difference because he's the guy, so you can still have plenty of kids if you want to, but he's quite good at leading a trade caravan. He is a level 162 in trade, 140 in tactics, and his personal combat skills are quite good. So he has the highest trade skill out of everyone on this list, and his tactics is not the highest, but it's, you know, well above average for people in the game. So he's quite good at all of that. As for traits, we've got generous and calculating for good, and cautious for a bad trait, but again, not terrible for leading a trade caravan. Honestly, really solid option. If you remember him from the story, he was a little bit more crippled and not as good at combat in the story, but you know, in the mod, it's different. So DORAN Martell takes the number 1 spot for the best husbands as far as their trading ability goes, and that is all 10. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful, but in any case, thanks a ton for watching and have a nice day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.